Describe regular cash dividends, extra dividends, liquidating dividends, stock dividends, stock splits, and reverse stock splits, including their expected effect on shareholders' wealth and a company's financial ratios. In this LOS, we are asked to describe some of the ways companies distribute profits and to understand the effect these varying methods of distribution have on shareholder wealth and company ratios. A regular dividend is a cash payment made by a company to its shareholders on a consistent and regular schedule. As an investor, the consistency and reliability of a company's dividend is paramount. A disruption to a long-standing dividend payment would be potentially very negative. In some jurisdictions, companies operate dividend reinvestment plans, also known as DRIPs. DRIPs are an automatic reinvestment of a cash dividend in the stock of the dividend-paying company. Participants in the program will no longer receive their portion of a cash dividend when it occurs. Instead, that cash is automatically used to invest in additional shares in the company. This isn't a major takeaway from this section, but it is worth mentioning. An extra dividend is a single, one-time cash payment out to the shareholders that a company will use to distribute some profits when things are going well. This is often utilized by companies in more cyclical industries. The benefit of this kind of one-off payment is that the company's share price might not be as easily affected when the investing public isn't led into some kind of expectation. It gives the company the flexibility to distribute profits or retain all of their earnings without massively affecting their share price. A liquidating dividend then refers to one of three scenarios. 1. The distribution of the assets of a liquidated company. 2. The distribution of cash proceeds from the sale of a part of a business. 3. The distribution of an amount that exceeds the company's accumulated retained earnings. The payment of a cash dividend decreases a company's cash asset and reduces the company's retained earnings. The effect of a cash reduction is a drop in liquidity, while a fall in shareholders' equity through retained earnings will increase the company's debt-to-equity ratio. A stock dividend is also known as a bonus issue of shares. This is a non-cash form of distribution whereby the company isn't distributing cash, they're actually distributing stock. By using a stock dividend as opposed to a cash dividend, the company can transfer retained earnings into paid-in capital. They effectively operate a kind of DRIP program without offering the investors the choice of cash. A stock dividend of anywhere greater than 25% or so in size would be referred to as a stock split. With a stock split, a company's main goal is to divide the outstanding shareholdings and pull down the share price. This is a bit different from the motivation for a stock dividend. With a stock split, existing shares are retired and replaced with a multiple of new shares. In a 5-for-1 split, for example, for each share a shareholder has of the old stock, they get 5 of the new. One major reason for going through with this is that there is a generally recognized optimal price range for stocks between $20 and $80. If a company's stock drifts upwards outside of this range, a company can use a 2-for-1 stock split, for example, to half that price and get back in range. A reverse stock split then is the exact opposite of the stock split. Now, where just before we were looking at a company that would take existing shares and replace them with a number of new shares, in this case, the company is going to be reducing the total number of outstanding shares. Again, the purpose here might be to keep the stock price in range, pushing a stock price that is below the target upwards, reducing the overall number of shares and increasing their individual value. It is vitally important that you understand that when a company employs a stock dividend, split, or reverse split, they adjust the number of shares outstanding. But since the overall value of the company doesn't change, the value of an individual share is going to have to change. Again, stock dividends, stock splits, and reverse stock splits only affect the number of outstanding shares. And because there is no impact on the company's assets, cash, or shareholders' equity, leverage and liquidity ratios will remain unchanged. Describe dividend payment chronology, including the significance of declaration, holder of record, ex-dividend, and payment dates. The declaration date is the date that the dividend is approved by the board of directors, the date that payment becomes official. On this date, the company will issue a statement declaring the type and details of the dividend. The ex-dividend, or ex-div date, is the dividend's cut-off date. To be a shareholder receiving the dividend, you need to have bought before this date. Any shares bought on or after this date won't participate in the dividend. Now, because of this, the value of the stock should change on this date to match the post-dividend makeup of the company. Before this date, the stock should include the value of the dividend, but after this date, buyers will no longer be eligible to receive the dividend, so they shouldn't be expected to pay for it. The record date comes up 2 days on from the ex-dividend date. This is the date that records the shareholders eligible for the dividend. Anyone holding a share on this date will receive their proportional share in the dividend payout. This is why you need to have bought before the ex-div date to be counted. With a settlement cycle of T+3, anything bought before the ex-div date will settle on or before this date. So for example, if I buy a share on Monday, January 5th, with an ex-div date on January 6th, with a T+3 trade settlement cycle, my trade will settle on Thursday, January 8th, so the shares will be in my name on that date. This will match the holder of record date for this dividend, meaning I am holding the stock on the date that the dividend participants are recorded. The last step then is the payment date, which is simply the date the actual distribution of cash is paid.